This video is only part of an unpaid, unbiased, in-depth review from an average rider's perspective, so check out the rest in the link below at thegoodride.com. If this video helps, please consider subscribing and buying through our links, or even better, become a member on YouTube or Patreon. You'll get exclusive access to video review shorts as we test gear, along with a lot of other perks. So thanks for watching, and I hope this review helps. Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm James Beastie. I gear whore for you, so you don't have to. And this is the K2 Niseko Pleasures. Next to it is the excavator and the instrument. Won't be talking about those as much because this is a very unique board in the K2 line. I rode it with Union Atlas, Burton Kendos. Got this in some groomers and some powder. Rode this once in the past, but only got it in some pretty kind of spring-like groomers, so didn't really feel comfortable doing a review. And now that I got back on this again and got it in the conditions it deserves, I'm coming to you with a review. So sorry for taking so long for those of you who requested this board. To give you a short summary, the Niseko Pleasures is like the Simple Pleasures, only really light, really poppy, really dynamic, but also pretty chattery, bucky, and bouncy if you're a heavier guy like myself on a board like this. And I'm not super heavy, 185, but that was too much for this little 151. But if you like that Gentim stick type of feel, that very light, poppy, small, setback, tapered, directional, kind of almost snow surfy, but not totally snow surfy because it's not all the way back on the tail like some of the Gentim stick boards, but it kind of feels like it lives in this world that's kind of in between the smaller manta rays and their like Hornet and Chaser and those kind of boards. It feels like something like kind of in between those worlds, but definitely uniquely K2, but still very light and poppy. It's got a pretty fast base too. Fastest I found in K2's line. Now, when it comes to sizing, I should have gone up one size. This 151 looked good on paper, and based on a lot of K2's rides, I thought I should go 51. It had been a while since I've ridden the old Niseko Pleasures, and I think that was a 56, and that was a lot better for me. So don't worry too much about all this width, and just size up if in doubt, especially if you're 185 pounds and 5'10" like myself. But even with a smaller boot that I have for my weight, size 9, it worked pretty well. So I think size up even if you're a size 9. Now, when it comes to the shape, there's a good bit of taper. I think it's like 22 mil of taper. It's pretty set back on board, not quite all the way snow surf setback, but if you look at it compared to the K2 excavator, it's definitely a step in the more setback, tapered, directional realm versus this, which this I think has close to 20 mil of taper, and you know, you can see the instrument there, that's 10 mil of taper, and you can kind of see how this board definitely looks like the guy in the gym who only does upper body and never does legs. But anyways, it has this very setback, very off the tail kind of feel. It's not super off the tail, but it definitely likes more back foot weight. And it did do a little better just personality wise when I rode it posi stance. I think I rode it like +3 or +6 on the back foot and 24 and 27, 24 or 27 on the front. It liked that better, but it doesn't freak out if you ride it slightly duck. Like if you set it up 18 -3, that's fine. Or 18 +3 if you want to go slightly positive, that's fine too. It's still on the stance width agnostic side, because some boards like this in this kind of family, those very tapered directional boards like Gentim Stick and Moss and others, and Karua and other boards like that, often like a posi stance, and this doesn't necessarily need it, but likes it a little better. And with the camber profile, you have this setback camber. There's a little early rise before the tail, but a lot more before the nose. So you have camber underfoot, it tracks well, it one foots well, it doesn't feel super tapered and twitchy like some boards can, but I think an intermediate could handle this if that's what calls to them riding style wise, but I think it's more for stronger intermediates and advanced expert riders. It skids a turn pretty easy though when you get off your game. It's just tapered, directional, light poppy, kind of atypical compared to a lot of boards, but an intermediate could ride it. Now, when it comes to edge hold, I felt like it did pretty good edge hold wise. The one thing though is it was only like the other K2 boards edge hold wise that could hold its edge well in hard snow, not amazing, but well, when the conditions were good. When the conditions were uneven, this lighter, poppier shape bucked and bounced me around too much. And speaking of flex, you can see here, it's a stiff flex. The nose is a little softer, but not by much. And the tail has a lot of energy there, and it's very stiff. Now, here's the interesting thing. Compare this to the excavator. It's a softer flex compared to that. It's still medium stiff, but what I thought was interesting between these two, I often rode them same day, same boots, same bindings, same conditions. And the excavator has much more dampness put into the board, and it handled my weight no problem. Where this little 51 really bucked and bounced me around. It was more poppy and more dynamic than the already poppy dynamic excavator, but it just kind of shat the bed on me whenever I got into messy, uneven snow. It was just bucking and bouncing me around, and I kept getting off my game with this. When I'd lay into a turn and I'd hit some uneven snow, if I did that with the excavator, it would just power right through. I wouldn't even feel it. With the Niseko Pleasures, it just bumped right out of that line and bucked and bounced me around, and I lost my drive out of the turn and often had to skid out. But at least it skids a turn easy, so I could do that. So far from ideal in uneven snow, but even if I sized up, it would still be a little bucky and bouncy, because that's just this board's construction personality and flex personality. Now, when it comes to speed, too chattery, too small for me. It's not a board, even if I sized up, it's not a board I'd want to bomb with. It is just not that kind of ride. It's for mellowing out, making careful, fun, creative turns. It's not for pointing it. The base glide though is the best of anything I've tried in K2, and it's kind of getting up near some of the really good bases. It's not like the fastest of fast still, but it definitely has a better glide and an easier glide to it. Great for traverses to keep your speed. Now, when it comes to turning and carving, the excavator, I felt like I could make hard, powerful carves. The Niseko Pleasures, I thought was no slouch, had really good energy and spring out of a turn and quick turn initiation, especially for its waist width, because it does have a lot of taper in the tail, so it turns faster than you would think for its specs. But what I found with the Niseko Pleasures is I wanted clean groomers, and I wanted to make nice, fun, more circle carvy kind of turns. I think it leans a little more on the circle carvy, kind of across the groomer, kind of articulate, fun, more circle carvy kind of turns than you would think for its side cut radius. So something else is going on there. But overall, it's not going to freak out or fight you if you want to make more longer drawn out S turns, as long as you're doing it at a slower speed. So just kind of moderate speed, fun turning is great with this board. I think I would like going a little faster, carving a little harder with the next size up, I think the 56. It's going to be pretty big, but it would be better. When it came to powder, it's just such an easy floater. This is kind of the last stop in K2's line before you go to the flat to rocker special effects or the old cool bean or the split bean or something like that. This still has camber, but it has a lot of taper, a big nose, a small tail, and you're more set back on board than any of the other K2 camber boards I tried. Way more set back on board than the Instrument, and a good bit more than the Excavator. With the Niseko Pleasures, you can get 5.325 inches back from center of board at a 20.75 inch stance width, and that's set all the way back. And versus the Excavator, you're looking at negative 4.625 at 21.75. Now, the Excavator is very set back and very directional. You can see the Instrument is definitely less set back and directional than the Excavator, and they're both 54s, so you can see how the Excavator is a little bit more set back. But then look at this Niseko Pleasures. You can see it's way further back than both of them. It's getting into that snow surf realm a little bit, but not quite totally there, but definitely more set back on board. You're riding this on the tail, and when I got it in deep powder, while it bucked and bounced me around a little too much anytime I hit uneven stuff, you could just see this just had such easy float, and it could easily be your dedicated powder board, especially if you size up. I would have, gosh, I'm kicking myself. I would have loved the 156. I wish I chose that too. So I was wrong. I thought I only missized with the Instrument, but I did missize with the Niseko Pleasures too. And that with like a lot of Gentem stick boards, I always feel the same thing. A lot of them are very light and very poppy and very tapered and very directional. So I'm always happier if I size up with those brands, with brands like Gentem stick and boards like the Niseko Pleasures. But still, you could just see, even at a 51, this thing just floats easy. Overall, I think this is a very niche board for K2's line, and it really surprised me because it doesn't have the personality of any of the other boards. It's so light, so ultralight, so poppy. That's just never been a good fit for my weight. But if you're a smaller, lighter rider and you want something at a more reasonable price point than a lot of the boards this is like from Gentem Stick and Moss and others, this could be a good fit for you. Giving advice on YouTube is very difficult because I need a lot of info from you to actually help. So if you want real advice, fill out the Me Harmony profile in the link below so I can help you properly.